Welcome, dear friends. Welcome to another episode of Fishing Without Bait. We're looking for individuals who are looking to create themselves rather than find themselves, to look at life and reality from another perspective and view life as an epic adventure. There's no admittance fee required, only the honesty, open-mindedness, and a willingness to try. Join our conversation and get acquainted with an eclectic roster of guests. Expect the unexpected and get an assist into exploding into your life with full impact mindfulness. Greetings again. I'm Jim Ellermeyer. I'm a behavioral health therapist, joined today by my good friend, producer, and co-host of this program, Mr. Mike. Mr. Mike is waving at everybody. And today, as promised, we rejoin our conversation with Miss Liss Victory and Mr. Krish Mohan, the social vigilante. For those of you who may be wondering who they are, perhaps you could go through some past episodes. Through some serendipity and synchronicity, I became acquainted with Liss, and then this program turned her on to the world where I hope there's many more people who have open ears and open eyes to do that. And in following that, then we got introduced to Mr. Krish Mohan, the social vigilante, an incredibly witty, well-spoken young man who has a profound sense of social justice and is an extremely well-spoken individual. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mrs. Liss Victory.
Oh, I knew you. I felt that that's what was going to happen. I felt that was going to be the first thing you were going to say.
You know me.
So what that tells us that something occurred in the past.
Yeah, they just got married.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. I happened to be there. However, I wanted to hear your version of it.
I'm kind of bummed out that I feel like it was like the best day of my life. And bummed out because I don't know. I'm not a romantic type, so for a wedding to be the best day, it should be an album release or something work related.
Really?
I would be more proud of that. It was the best day of my life.
It kind of still was a show.
It was really cool.
You played a song as your vows,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had a bunch of our performer friends that we conned into playing as part of our ceremony. So that was kind of like producing a show.
Yeah, I like that
So
aspect.
at the end of it, now the government knows I exist in tandem to you.
Kind of. We haven't gotten all the paperwork filled out yet.
Well,
Yeah, there's a bunch of it.
it's close enough for government work, is it not? I mean,
Right.
we just kind of dance through the raindrops and we just proceed.
I mean, they were shut down for a while, and we don't want to bother them.
We flow and proceed through life. So, referring back to our last episode, the last chapter of this book, many more I hope to be written, Mrs. Liss Victory performed some wonderful songs for us. Particularly, she was kind enough to perform Kodachrome Heart from the audience upon my request a number of weeks ago. And you were embarking on your tour. You were going across the United States. You were hoping to get a lot of exposure for your wonderful voice. And Mr. Krish has tours the United States, and with his special brand of political comedy satire with a sharp point.
Yeah,
is what I would call it.
That's a very nice way of putting that.
So let's get a little update. Let's get a little update on you, Liss.
Oh, well, we went cross country together on the transcontinental tour. We've done that twice now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we really want to do probably every 2 years or so. Although I'm skipping way ahead. We have plans to move to New York City in 2020. So that's actually the year that we would have planned the next transcontinental tour. But we will probably not be doing that in the same year as moving to New York City, because 2018 was kind of moving into a new place at the very end of 2017.
Yeah.
We just moved in January of 2018, and then I recorded my album Calca Shows, and then I released my album in April, and then in May we went on the cross country tour. We got back in September. We got married in October.
And then we went back on. We did some shows in California, which was kind of like a pretty much just very concentrated 4 days of doing stuff, and then flew back and then drove back to Pittsburgh. So it was like this pretty much nonstop thing for
So I have a hunch that one just doesn't wake up in the morning and say, I think we'll go on a transcontinental tour and leave that afternoon.
no.
So tell us a little bit about preparing the logistics. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's a lot of planning, and over the course of the last 8 years, I've been touring around a bunch, and Liss has toured around a bunch, and so we've made some contacts across the country, and it's like people like that used to live in Pittsburgh have moved elsewhere, and they're able to help us out. But I mean, a majority of it is routing. You have
I was
to,
gonna say that too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
from which city to which city, how many hours
yeah,
between those cities.
and
and
how
I
much
love it.
gas is going to be used.
You
up.
love,
I love planning. I love maps, and I
Yeah.
love figuring out distances, and I've loved that since I was a kid.
I always thought you had a calculating mind, Liss.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, and that's sort of the hardest part of it is like how do you navigate throughout, because there's so many different options once you get to certain cities. They're like little hub cities in each tour. Then it's like, well, where do I go? If I go north, I can basically do 12 more days. But well, what if I go west? I can do another 13 days. But then where am I going after that? So we kind of evaluated like what the best course of action would be, because we did the Carolinas in 2017.
That was so much fun. That was
Yeah.
the tour that I just didn't want to end. It was
Yeah.
like 2 weeks, and I wasn't tired or bored by the end of it. But I think with the two really big transcontinental tours,
Yeah.
we figured out that 1 month is too short
Way
of a
too short.
time to go all the way to the West Coast and come back to the East Coast. And once we went past month 3, all of month 4, I was just exhausted.
I remember reading
So-
some of your blogs about your previous trips.
Yeah, 3 months is cool.
I
And
think
I've
3
done
months is
4
cool.
months on the road before too, but also at the end of that 4 months, I was like delusional. And I mean that very literally. Like I was looking at a map and I couldn't figure out how to get to my hotel from the Denny's. And then I ate food and realized it was literally from point A to point B on the same road to get to the hotel.
So you developed
from the
some
Denny's.
clarity. So what you were talking about here is that some people see a problem and they don't have the ability or the guidance to break it down into parts. Okay.
Yeah, and that's sort of the same way that you plan a tour is like once we figured out the routing, then it makes everything so much simpler because then it's like, oh, we know this person here, we know this person here. Actually, that same person can help us in the next 4 spots because they have all these connections too, and so
you
you
know
kind
which
of put
dates to ask for.
yeah, and then it's just a matter of sending out the emails, which is also a daunting task in and of itself because it's literally like I would say about what a quarter of the cities we had never been to, if not more. So we had to like figure out what are the venues that are going to be conducive to what we're doing, which really the best venues for what we were doing, which is like a music and comedy show with sometimes with spoken word storytelling and poetry involved, is like listening room environments where you sit down and you're there specifically for the show rather than just like a random bar that happens to have a stage in the back and it's like the
Oof,
townies
yeah.
show up and they're like, oh, I guess that's happening, and sometimes like those are the gigs that'll make you the most money, but they are the least fun shows to do because they are just exhausting by the end of it, because you're fighting the people that are you're fighting the people that are there to drink and you want the people that are there to watch the show to have fun, and you don't. And it's more exhausting trying to like maintain that balance when you're on stage.
So you're talking about maintaining balance and you're talking about, and it's just like between relatives and friends. You can
Mhm.
pick your friends, however, you can't pick your relatives. So when you're appearing in some venues, you can't really, it's
Yeah, it
spin
is
the
what it
wheel
is.
who's going to be
Right.
there.
Yeah, there were a couple places like that where we were like, man, this is gonna be rough,
Uh-huh.
and then it is, and by the end of it, we're just so tired, and we just want to like go to bed.
Well, I'd like to explore that a little further. And on Liss, when you were talking about, oh my gosh, the lines on the roads just look like dots. Everything is just spinning around because you're so tired. There's a thought in the 12-step world that you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. Okay, so sometimes when we're inside of all that maelstrom of all that activity and thoughts and chatter, we can't read the label. Okay, so if we have the ability to step back and look at, then we can read the label, and that's kind of what you did when you sound like you got something to eat.
Yeah. Food is a big thing because I'm hypoglycemic, so that really messes with my perception of reality. But I think it's important too to point out that what we do, DIY, touring, and production, is not normal. It's
No.
not the normal course of events. For example, we were just watching a reality show about conspiracies in the music world, and they're talking about how the Sex Pistols wrote a song with their manager. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is that? Like, really? Your manager helped you
Yeah.
write this song? Like, I've worked with bands and their managers.
Okay.
And I'm not a huge fan of that world. And I've been in it myself, and I've worked with little labels, and I've worked with big magazines, and they generally tend to be the most soul sucking of industry jobs. Like, the higher you go up, which kind of makes sense. But we do our own booking, which is not super normal. We do our own
No.
promotion. We do the research for the venues. We had someone who said, "You don't have a driver," which,
Who said
really?
we don't have a driver?
San Diego.
Oh, yeah, that was a
We worked with someone who had a manager.
very weird situation.
She was confused, and she was like, "They drive themselves." Like,
And they
it
were
was
like,
this big thing.
Yeah, he was kind of fascinated. The manager specifically was kind of fascinated with, like, the fact that we were pulling it off by ourselves. I mean, a lot of people are. A lot of people are like, you guys do all of this stuff. Like, when do you have time to? And it's like, yeah, we don't have 100% of our
Don't have
time
time.
to like, as much as Liss would like to play guitar for 8 hours of the day, I would like to sit and read whatever, like books or articles or whatever, and then create content out of like the information that I learned. That's sort of like what I like doing. I would love to do that for 8 hours a day, but that would pretty much mean that I could curate a really good show that I'm very proud of, and 4 people across the country have seen it.
Well, what I always appreciated about you both was that you have a beginner's mind, like we always talk about, and lead not a completely unstructured life. You don't walk through aimlessly through life. However, you just kind of aim, okay, and go that way. And what I'm hearing you say is, when you have a manager, you have all those constructions and constraints around you. You're kind of put into a box and sometimes told what to do, and maybe stifles a little creativity.
I would think so. I would say I say so, yeah, because I think, the manager wants to get paid too at the end of the day, and if what we're doing in our DIY world is like, let's just hypothetically throw a number out that's easy for everybody to understand. At the end of the month, we made $1,000, and the manager's cut is 10% of that. Well,
I feel
great.
like 20 is more normal.
Okay,
So
20.
that's $200.
It's $200
out of the 1,000.
That's nothing. I mean, that, like, okay, great. You were able to buy some groceries if
he's
you're
not
a
making
family man.
a living off of being
my manager.
Yeah.
So what's the point, right? So they are going to go out and try to get the bigger fish, but the bigger fish is, for comedy, is comedy clubs, right? Like big name comedy clubs. We're talking Improv, Funny
Yes.
Bone, that sort of stuff. Not something like Burning Bridges Comedy Club, which is a great little independent comedy room in Pittsburgh now, right? And it's the same thing with Liss. Would be like, it wouldn't be Ham Bones or Smalls, but it would be like the big arena. And if she's doing protest songs, and if I'm on stage criticizing capitalism, ideally through jokes, that's not going to fly because guess what doesn't sell? Chicken tenders, protest songs and criticizing capitalism.
Well, I'm thinking back to that scene in Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't know if you saw it or not. When
I haven't seen
they wanted to make the Bohemian Rhapsody song too long. The guy said it has to be 3 minutes, and just pounded them. And they basically said, "Screw yourself." We left, and they left.
Yeah,
that's Krish's hour of comedy right now.
Yeah,
I keep yelling at him like, "Why didn't you cut it down? Why didn't you cut it down?"
Because I don't give a shit. I have a lot to say, and I'm going to say it. Who's controlling
well,
it?
That's
told me
that's
that three
what,
times now.
That's what that's basically what Queen did.
Yeah, it's like I'm controlling what I'm
job.
doing.
And when they walked out, they said they told that record executive, "You're going to be the guy who's known that you turned down Queen." And I remember specifically at the end when they were playing at Live Aid, they showed this guy sitting at his desk with Freddie Mercury and the band playing in front of these gazillions of people.
Yeah, and that's a great song.
Indeed, it is.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast. If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.